The girl says to the billionaire CEO, "Hi, sir. Why do you appear in my family's photo albums?" Imagine this. A sunny afternoon in Riverside Park. Families laughing, children playing, and the faint smell of ice cream wafting through the air. Everything seems ordinary until an 8-year-old girl with untamed curls and bright green eyes walks straight up to one of the most powerful men in the city. Clutching his expensive suit jacket, she looks him square in the eye and asks, "Hi, sir, why do you appear in my family's photo albums?" That single question sends shockwaves through both their lives, unraveling secrets buried for nearly a decade. Today, we're diving into a story about love, loss, courage, and second chances. A tale where innocence meets power, and the past refuses to stay hidden. This isn't just any story. It's about Lily Evans, a curious and fearless little girl who has no idea how much her simple question will change everything. She's the kind of kid who skips along cobblestone paths, clutching her favorite ice cream cone, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside her. Her mother, Sarah Evans, sits nearby on a bench, distracted by a work call, thinking nothing could go wrong in such a peaceful setting. But life has a funny way of turning ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. And when Alexander Hayes, billionaire CEO, whose face is plastered across magazines and billboards, strolls into the park, surrounded by security guards, fate steps in to rewrite history. Alexander Hayes might seem like your typical larger-than-life figure. He's wealthy, successful, and carries himself with the confidence that comes from years of building an empire. Yet beneath that polished exterior lies a man haunted by something he can't quite name, a void that all his achievements haven't been able to fill. When Lily tugs at his jacket and blurts out her innocent question, it's as if time freezes. For a moment, the bustling park fades away, leaving only the three of them suspended in a bubble of tension. The look on Alexander's face says it all. He knows exactly what she means, even if he doesn't want to believe it. Sarah, on the other hand, is living a quiet life, far removed from the glitz and glamour of Alexander's world. A nurse working long shifts at a hospital, she's devoted every ounce of energy to raising Lily alone. Their modest apartment may not have much, but it's filled with love, and a few dusty photo albums tucked away on the highest shelf. Those albums hold memories Sarah thought she'd left behind forever. Memories of a younger version of herself, standing next to a carefree Alexander, smiling like they had the whole world ahead of them. Back then, they were college sweethearts planning a future together. But plans change, people disappear, and, sometimes, silence becomes the heaviest burden of all. The encounter in the park forces Sarah to confront a truth she spent 8 years running from. As she watches Lily boldly approach Alexander, panic grips her chest. This is the man she once loved, the man whose dreams she sacrificed for. It's also the man whose mother made it painfully clear that someone like Sarah, with no connections or prestigious background, would only hold him back. So she left, disappearing without a word, convinced it was the right thing to do. But now, here he is, staring at her daughter with those same piercing green eyes that haunt her dreams, eyes that belong to him. What follows is a whirlwind of emotions, revelations, and decisions that neither Sarah nor Alexander saw coming. Lily, driven by a child's unshakable belief in happy endings, takes matters into her own hands. After piecing together clues from the forbidden photo albums and overhearing fragments of adult conversations, she decides it's up to her to bridge the gap between her parents. Armed with nothing but determination and Alexander's business card, she sets off on a mission that could either bring her family together or tear it apart forever. As the story unfolds, we see glimpses of the sacrifices Sarah made, the weight of Alexander's loneliness, and the resilience of a little girl who refuses to accept anything less than the truth. Themes of forgiveness, trust, and the complexities of human relationships weave through every scene, drawing us deeper into their world. We're left wondering, can love really conquer all? Is it possible to rebuild what was broken? And most importantly, will Lily's bold move lead to the happily ever after she so desperately believes in? But before we get too far ahead, let's pause right here. Because while Lily's question may have opened a door, it's also raised countless others. Why did Sarah leave without saying goodbye? What role did Alexander's mother play in keeping them apart? And perhaps the biggest mystery of all, how will Alexander react when he learns the full truth about Lily? These are the questions that keep us hooked, the threads pulling us closer to understanding the depth of their shared history. So buckle up, because this is more than just a story about a billionaire CEO and the woman who walked out of his life. It's about the ties that bind us, the choices we make out of love, and the lengths we'll go to protect the people we care about. It's about a little girl who reminds us that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask the hard questions, even if you don't know what answers await. Stick around because the journey is just beginning. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. As Sarah stood frozen in the park, her mind raced back to that fateful day, 8 years ago, when she made the decision to leave Alexander without a word. It wasn't just fear that drove her, it was survival. She remembered the visit from Alexander's mother vividly, like it had happened yesterday. The older woman sat across from her in their tiny apartment, every inch of her radiating power and disdain. "You'll ruin him," she had said coldly, her voice cutting through Sarah like a knife. "Someone like you, no connections, no background. You'll be nothing but an anchor around his neck." At first, Sarah tried to argue, but then came the threats. Investors would pull out, doors would close. Everything Alexander worked so hard for would crumble if Sarah stayed in his life. And worst of all, she believed it. She believed every word, because deep down, Sarah already felt inadequate next to Alexander's brilliance and ambition. When Sarah discovered she was pregnant, weeks after leaving, the weight of her choice doubled. How could she go back now? What kind of life would they have together under constant scrutiny and pressure? So she kept quiet, raising Lily alone while watching from afar as Alexander climbed higher and higher, his face becoming synonymous with success. Meanwhile, her own dreams took a back seat as she juggled nursing school, night shifts at the hospital, and being both parents to Lily. Life wasn't easy, but it was theirs. A patchwork of love, sacrifice, and resilience, stitched together by two people who refused to let circumstances break them. But now, standing face to face with Alexander again, Sarah realized how fragile that patchwork truly was. One question from Lily, one tug on Alexander's jacket, and the walls she'd built around herself were crumbling faster than she could rebuild them. For Alexander, the encounter in the park opened a Pandora's box of emotions he thought he'd buried long ago. He had always wondered why Sarah left. But over time, the pain turned into anger and eventually numbness. Or so he thought, seeing her again and realizing there might be more to her disappearance than he ever imagined, shook him to his core. That night, unable to focus on work or sleep, he commissioned a discreet investigation into Sarah's life. The report confirmed what he feared most. She had struggled alone, raising a child who bore his unmistakable green eyes. His initial shock gave way to guilt, followed quickly by determination. This wasn't just about answers anymore. This was about justice. For himself, for Sarah, and most importantly, for Lily. Meanwhile, Lily became increasingly obsessed with uncovering the truth. Her innocent curiosity transformed into something deeper, almost instinctual. She noticed things others missed. The way her mother clutched Alexander's business card late at night. The tears that slipped down her cheeks when she thought no one was looking. The worn university sweatshirt tucked away in a box under her bed. To Lily, these weren't random details. They were clues pointing toward a story she desperately wanted to understand. When she found the business card in her mother's purse, she saw it as her chance to piece the puzzle together herself. Her logic was simple yet profound. If Alexander Hayes belonged in their family photos, then he belonged in their lives. With the boldness only a child could muster, she decided to take matters into her own hands. The morning Lily skipped school to visit Alexander's office marked a turning point in the story. As she stood in the sleek lobby of Hayes Technologies, clutching his business card like a lifeline, her heart pounded with equal parts fear and resolve. The receptionist's polite refusal to let her see Alexander only fueled her determination. "It's important," Lily insisted, her small voice rising above the hum of activity in the room. When security began closing in, panic bubbled up inside her. This was her only shot, her one chance to find out the truth. "Please," she begged, her green eyes locking onto the receptionist's. "Tell him Lily Evans is here, the girl from the park." Something in her tone must have struck a chord, because moments later, the elevator doors opened, and Alexander stepped out, seeing Lily standing defiantly in the lobby, her backpack still strapped tightly to her chest. Alexander felt something shift within him. This wasn't just some curious child anymore. This was his daughter, or at least potentially his. Kneeling down to her level, he asked gently, "What did you want to ask me?" Lily took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of courage she possessed. "The man in the photos with my mom. You." Her voice faltered briefly before regaining strength. "She keeps your old sweatshirt under her bed and sometimes cries when she looks at the pictures. Are you my dad?" The silence that followed was deafening, the question hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. For Alexander, it was confirmation of everything he suspected, but couldn't bring himself to believe until now. For Lily, it was the moment her world changed forever. Back at the hospital, Sarah's phone buzzed with a call from Alexander's assistant. Each word hit her like a hammer blow. Lily was safe, yes, but she was also asking questions. Questions Sarah wasn't prepared to answer. Rushing to Hayes Technologies, her mind spiraled with worst-case scenarios. What had Lily said? What had Alexander told her? Would he demand answers, right there in front of their daughter? By the time she arrived, her nerves were frayed, her heart pounding wildly. Walking into the conference room where Alexander waited, she braced herself for the confrontation she'd spent years avoiding. But when Lily looked up at her, her expression a mix of defiance and guilt, Sarah knew there was no turning back. Secrets wouldn't protect anyone anymore. Not her, not Alexander, and certainly not Lily. As the three of them sat together, the air thick with unspoken truths, Alexander finally voiced the question that had haunted him since the park. "Why, Sarah, why would you keep this from me?" His voice cracked slightly, betraying the depth of his pain. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold the pieces together. "It wasn't about forgiveness, Alex," she admitted softly. "It was about survival. Your mother made it clear what would happen if I stayed in your life." The revelation stunned Alexander, his anger shifting from Sarah to the woman who had manipulated them both. 3 years ago, he murmured, almost to himself. "My mother passed away 3 years ago. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. 3 years. 3 years during which she could have come back, could have told him the truth. But fear and pride had kept her silent, and now they faced the daunting task of rebuilding what had been broken. With James taking Lily to another part of the office, Sarah and Alexander delved deeper into the past, unraveling the tangled web of secrets and lies. Every word they spoke brought them closer to understanding each other and themselves, but it also highlighted the enormity of what they'd lost. 8 years of birthdays, milestones, and everyday moments stolen from Alexander and Lily. 8 years of loneliness and regret for Sarah. Yet amidst the pain, there was hope. Hope that they could move forward, not as strangers bound by blood, but as a family learning to trust again. As the conversation drew to a close, Lily peeked into the room, her presence a reminder of what truly mattered. "Are you done talking about me yet?" she asked innocently, her green eyes darting between them. In that moment, Sarah and Alexander exchanged a glance filled with unspoken promises. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, it felt possible. As Sarah and Alexander stood there, the weight of their shared history pressing down on them, Lily's innocent proclamation hung in the air like a challenge neither of them could ignore. "Obviously, you're still in love with each other," she had said, her voice brimming with the certainty only a child could possess. For a moment, both adults were silent, caught between laughter and disbelief. But beneath the surface, something shifted, a crack in the walls they'd built around their hearts over the years. Alexander stepped closer, his eyes searching Sarah's face for any sign of hesitation. "Tell me there's nothing still there," he murmured, his voice low but steady. "Tell me that being just friends will be enough." Sarah looked up at him, her breath catching as memories flooded back. The late-night conversations, the way he used to make her laugh until her sides hurt, the dreams they once shared. She couldn't lie, not now, not after everything they'd been through. "I can't," she admitted softly, her voice trembling, and then, without another word, Alexander leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle at first, almost hesitant, as if he feared she might pull away. But when Sarah responded, wrapping her arms around his neck, the kiss deepened. 8 years of longing pouring out in an instant. From across the park where Lily stood, watching, a satisfied grin spread across her face. Her plan had worked. In the weeks that followed, their relationship evolved cautiously but steadily. They agreed to take things slow, prioritizing Lily's adjustment above all else. Weekly dinners became their ritual, sometimes at Alexander's penthouse, other times at Sarah and Lily's modest apartment. These moments allowed them to rediscover each other, piece by piece. Alexander marveled at how much Lily reminded him of Sarah. Her sharp wit, her curiosity, her stubborn determination. He also noticed glimpses of himself in her. The way she approached problems methodically, her love for strategy games, and even her habit of tapping her fingers when she was thinking hard. Each discovery brought him closer to the daughter he never knew he had. For Lily, having Alexander in her life felt like finding a missing puzzle piece. She loved showing him her school projects, teaching him the rules of her favorite board games, and sneaking peeks at the sketches she made during art class. One evening, while helping her set up a chessboard, Alexander asked, "Do you think I'm doing okay? As a dad, I mean." Lily paused mid-move, considering his question seriously, before nodding. "You're getting better," she declared with a grin. "But you still let me win sometimes." Alexander laughed, ruffling her curls affectionately. "Fair point. No more letting you win unless you earn it." Meanwhile, Sarah continued to navigate the complexities of blending their lives together. Though Alexander offered to help financially, she insisted on maintaining her independence, refusing to give up her nursing career or the sense of purpose it gave her. However, she did agree to let him contribute to a college fund for Lily, knowing it would ease some of the future burdens. Their dynamic remained a delicate balance, two strong-willed individuals learning to trust again while respecting each other's boundaries. Slowly but surely, they began to rebuild what had been broken. The turning point came 6 months later, on a crisp autumn morning. Alexander invited Sarah and Lily to visit the brownstone he had purchased, a decision that initially sparked playful arguments between them. "You bought an entire building without consulting me," Sarah had teased, though her tone betrayed her amusement. "Technically, it's for the Hayes Foundation," Alexander replied sheepishly. "The top floor just happens to have a nice apartment." As they explored the space together, Lily grew increasingly excited, pointing out potential spots for a dog bed and imagining how their lives might intertwine in this new chapter. That evening, as they sat in the cozy living room of the brownstone, Alexander turned to Sarah with a nervous smile. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you," he began, reaching into his pocket. Before he could say another word, Lily jumped up from her seat, clapping her hands. "Oh my gosh, are you proposing? Finally!" Her exclamation broke the tension, making everyone laugh. Alexander knelt down anyway, holding out a simple yet elegant ring. "Sarah Evans," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "You've always been the strongest, most incredible woman I've ever known. Will you marry me? Not because we have to, but because we choose to." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she nodded, her heart swelling with joy. "Yes," she whispered, pulling him into a tight embrace. Beside them, Lily cheered, already planning the details of the wedding. True to form, she insisted on including the golden retriever puppy they adopted together, a symbol of their blended family. On the day of the ceremony, held in a small chapel surrounded by close friends and family, Lily led the procession down the aisle, beaming with pride as she carried a basket of flowers. The puppy trotted beside her, its blue ribbon perfectly tied, eliciting smiles from everyone present. As Alexander and Sarah exchanged vows, their voices steady, despite the emotions threatening to overwhelm them, Lily watched from the front row, her green eyes shining with happiness. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the applause was drowned out by Lily's enthusiastic cheers. Later, during the reception, as they danced under twinkling lights in Riverside Park, the same place where their journey had reignited, Sarah rested her head against Alexander's shoulder. "We did it," she murmured. "Against all odds, we found our way back to each other." Alexander kissed the top of her head, his grip tightening slightly. "Not just us," he corrected gently. "All three of us. Together." Nearby, Lily giggled as the puppy chased after falling leaves, her laughter mingling with the music. In that moment, surrounded by love and the promise of a brighter future, they realized that sometimes fairy tales do come true. Not because they're perfect, but because people fight for them. And for Sarah, Alexander, and Lily, that fight had been worth every step.